Going on, designers? Well, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going through how you make a thumbnail in Photoshop. This is quite a well-known one on my channel. It's the Avengers one that I created. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how you design it. I'm going to give you 4 tips for designing thumbnails, and all of this is free. Obviously, it's just free knowledge from my tutorials. So let's get into it. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn it into this. You will have seen this on my channel if you've been on there. It's quite simple to create. Obviously, you need an image like this in the first place, but obviously, if you guys are watching this, I know you have your own designs to use. I'm just going to show you how you can create this really quickly. It'll be quite nice and simple. So let's get straight into it. We're back with our image here. Now, the first thing that I do is usually unlock the background and then I drop my image in. So if I zoom in, I'm just gonna resize this image to how I want it. So when I was making this design, I made it about half the size of the one side, but obviously tilted it on its side. And then I double click to get my blending options up. So the next thing is to add a stroke to the design. That is going to be the first thing we're going to do to this whole image. We're going to add strokes, and I'm going to show you how they can affect the image. So I'm going to drop a stroke on that. Obviously, we don't want it blue, we want it white. And we want it on the outside, but we want it about 8, I'd say. So by adding a stroke, we have already identified the main feature of the image, which is our piece of artwork. Now that we've got our piece of artwork in there with the stroke, we're just going to add a drop shadow as well. Obviously, you won't be able to see this yet, but once I put the background in, you'll be able to see it. The next thing you're going to need to do is get your rectangle tool, get a stroke about 10, that's fine, and then go to the corner and just drag it across. And when it links with everything, you drop it in. That's the strokes pretty much done. It just gives it a nice border of an outline and something to represent to when you look at the design. So I'm going to move this over to the side a bit more, just so it's covering that side of the image. And then I'm going to go and choose my stock images. You're going to need probably to find stock images online. I've got a graphics pack, so I'm going to use that. This is only £1 though. I'm sure you guys have got £1 to spare if you're designers like me. I'm just going to leave a link in the description because it's really good. It's got everything you would need, and you shouldn't ever need anything else than this, to be honest. It has loads of stuff in. So I'm just going to So now we've got our background. The next thing you're going to need to do is you can add a solid color over the top. So if you select your background images and then you click into your layer options and then go to solid color, which is at the top, and then you can just sort of get like a purpley color, pinky color, personal preference really. I'm going to go for a in between, and then you can just sort of go through your blending options and just see what works best. So if none of them work best, you might just leave it. But if some of them do look good, like multiply does, or darken, linear burn looks quite nice. It makes it a bit darker though, and it gets rid of the purple. If you go down to like different or something, it's personal preference. I'm going to add saturation just to make it a bit more brighter and a bit more of a pop. We've got our background done now, and we've got the color done. That's number 2. The next thing to do is probably the text. So I'm just going to show you how I created mine. I'm just going to type Avengers, and then I'm just going to change it to a font which I downloaded. So it's called Vengeance Heroic Avenger. Now, this is a font you can get anywhere. Just type it in online, you can download it. So I got my font like so, and I placed it around here. I'm pretty sure I can get this one here. And then I'm just going to change the color of it by going color overlay, and then changing to probably like a pink. Like, you got to blend it with the background so it looks good, and then you add a stroke. So now, as you can see, this is looking more like what you saw in the other design. And then I'm going to add a drop shadow as well, just to emphasize that it's there. So that's the Avengers bit done. Now the next thing you'll need to do is type effect. Now I didn't use the same font for this. I used a bold font. Something like Impact is good. So if you make Impact, and then I basically put it at the edge, and then I increase the size of it until the other corner of the design. So I made it quite big, and then I put it down the middle like so. Now I've got that. I'm just going to move them both up a bit. If I just move them up so much, there we go. So now I've got my text. I've moved it into the position I want it in. The next thing I did, just get a rectangle, and I dragged it over the top. I changed the fill to white, and I got rid of the stroke. So now I've got my rectangle and I've got my text. So the next thing you're going to need to do is select your text. So you want to rasterize the type, and then you can go to select, load selection, like so. Now you've got that, and then you're going to go to select inverse, and then you go to your rectangle and you just click layer mask. So now if I turn that off, as you can see, I've easily cut out the text. So now your text is on the rectangle, and now I'm going to add a drop shadow to that, and you can add just anything you want really. Like you can stroke it, but obviously that looks silly. So I'm just going to add a drop shadow, maybe an inner glow or something like so, just to add a bit of effect. So now we are halfway there. The last thing I'm going to do is add the tutorial bit at the bottom. So if I just type tutorial and then I choose a font, so I use quite a fat, like not bouncy font, but playful font for this. So it's completely up to you really. I'm just going to choose that one for this video, and then I'm just gonna see if it fits basically. I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger as well. You can squish it up if you want to, obviously it's personal preference at the end of the day. Just make sure that they all line up. So I'm just gonna select all three of them, and then I'm gonna put them like that so they all line up, and then if I go like that, I can move them all as I want, as I see fit. So about there looks good to me. And now I'm just going to basically edit the last bit of text, which I'm going to add a drop shadow. I'm going to add the same stroke, and then I'm going to add a color overlay of probably blue. I think I used a blue to match my Photoshop logo, which I'll add in later. We've got our text, so a little tip is I'm going to tell you to select all of them and then group them together. So now you know where your text is. Now you can just name that text, and I'm going to make a duplicate of this. So now I've got a duplicate of it. I'm going to click Command E as well, and then I'm going to drop it below. And then I'm just going to use my arrow keys to position it probably below a bit, like so. And as you can see now, I've created that little 3D effect which we're looking for. And you can see that the text sort of stands out a bit more. That's all for the text. That's all done now. So the next thing to do is add the explosions, and we can add some logos. And that's about it really. We need to just get explosions. You can get explosions off images online, and then you can just cut them out and it'll be all good. So I'm just going to go back to this image, and I'm going to show you what I've done. As you can see, there's explosion there, and then there's the Photoshop logo. So the next thing to do is probably drop the Photoshop logo in. Now I'm just going to choose probably this one because it's just easier for me to do. I'm just going to drop it in. It's just like downloading any Photoshop image online. And all I did to it was add a stroke, and then I duplicated it and then dragged it below and did the same thing again with the arrow keys just to make it look a bit more 3D. Now that we've got this effect, we just need to get the explosions. Now I don't think they have them in this pack. I'm not sure. They have smoke, but I don't think they have explosions. The best place to go is probably to go to another pack that I have, which is the Fortnite pack, which is free as well, which I'll leave a link in below. So once that loads up, right, there we go. I'm just going to go to PNGs, and I'm going to go down to my explosion, and it's just here. So this is the explosion I've got. I'll leave a link to this pack in the description below, and then I'm just going to drop and drag it into my design. As you can see, it's obviously the wrong color, and it's in the wrong position. So if we bring it down to about below there, that looks good. Actually, no, just below, just above. And then we can change the color of it. So if you select it and then go to your layer options and go gradient map. Now, you want to clip and mask this to the design. Now, as you can see, it's still the wrong color. Now I'm going to change this color to black, and then I'm going to change this color to probably some sort of purple, like so. Now, as you can see, it's starting to blend a bit better, isn't it? Now it looks a bit more with the design. And as you can see, there's a bit of a harsh edge there. So all you need to do is select it, get a rubber tool, convert it to a smart object, and then just sort of click away at that harsh. So now you can see it's really popping. So if I just group these both and then click explosion, now I can duplicate this, and I can just move that copy over to about here. You can rotate it as well and just click like so, and then I'm just going to move the explosion copy below. So now I've got sort of an explosion behind and an explosion in front. Now this is looking a lot more like what I created. Depending on where you want it to, how you want it to look, you can sort of manipulate it a bit better than I have. As you can see, this is looking a lot like what I created. So there's one more thing to add from the Desire pack, which is particles. So if you go down to particles and then just Probably choose whichever one you want. I'm just going to choose a white one, just so it stands out on top of the design. And then if I just resize it so it fits, like so. Obviously, I'm not saying you have to buy this pack. There are other options of getting these effects. You can sort of just download them online. It's personal preference, really. But I just thought it was only £1 and it's got all the stuff you need to manipulate this image. Now that's pretty much it. So I've added my particles, I've got my text, I've got my image, I've got my color, and I've got my explosions. That's all the things ticked off the list that you need. Now you can add other effects like action lines, like the Fortnite action lines, or you can just add like grain effects over the top. I chose for this to select all of it and then group them all together, Command J and then Command E to make it as one piece, and then I Command J that again. So now I'm going to select the whole thing, like I did here, select the whole thing, and then I'm going to go layer via cut, so it's cut from the background, and now I've got my layer. This is where I added a Gaussian blur, but first I'm going to go through a camera raw filter for this. So as you can see, this looks quite scary. I know, I didn't really know how to use it when I first used it, but it's quite easy and simple. So if you go through basic and then you just increase some of these sliders, you can get quite a nice color effect. So obviously we can increase the pinks, we can increase the greens, it's personal preference, and then you can increase texture and vibrance and a bit of saturation just to bring it out a bit more. And then we're just gonna add a bit of grain on effects. If I do that and then OK it, as you can see, it's already changed the design and made it pop a bit better. Obviously there's a bit of green here, so if you don't want that, don't add the green in, but I quite like it behind there. It's a bit of a contrasting colour. The next thing I'm going to do now is add a Gaussian blur to the image. So if I go up here, select my image, and then go Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur. Now I'm going to add probably about a 3.2, so it's just blurred out, and then I'm going to layer mask this, and then I'm going to get a brush, and I'm just going to change it to black, and then I'm just going to paint back in the bits that I want to see. So as you can see, I'm just painting back the text, so obviously you want to see the text. It's mainly for the edges of the design, this. As you can see, like so. Just get that all back in. You can add the explosions back in. You don't have to do the whole thing. I just sort of do it for the edges because it looks good on the blend and on the stroke. That's another reason why you want to use strokes. I've layer masked that all back out. Got my text, got my Photoshop logo, got it all there. Now the next thing to do is export this. So you want to just select that and then go File, Export, Quick Export as a PNG. Then that's all you need to do for your thumbnail. That's literally it. So if you want to know the size for the thumbnail, I'll just quickly show you now. Just going to go image size and then pixels. That's what it is. You can find this online. It's really simple. I'll leave it in description below as well for you guys. But that's it for this video. I hope you have learned something. I hope you have learned how to make a thumbnail and seen how simple it is. These are free tutorials, guys. I'd love it if you could subscribe and support the channel and follow me through my journey. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like and a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.